Hello, everybody. How you doing today? There we go. Okay. So today I am presenting to you Laura Crotty. Laura Crotty, an award-winning culinary writer, works in plant-based product development. She received her chief certification at the Institute of Culinary Education under the instruction of the late Annemarie Colbin, PhD, an early pioneer of the health food movement. Her work has appeared in such outlets as NPR, Motherwell, the Huffington Post, Seattle Magazine, MSN, Vegan Food, and Living in Taste for Life magazine. So she's been doing it for a little while. I think you can say that. Her interview subjects have included such luminaries as Chef Thomas Keller, the first and only American-born chef to hold multiple 3-star ratings from the prestigious Michelin Guide, Alice Waters, owner of Chef Panisse, is that right? Panisse, I said it right, all right. And a pioneer of the farm-to-table movement in America, and Tom Douglas, restaurateur and multiple James Beard Award recipient. The Little Vegan Dessert Cookbook, her first book, is a Next Generation Indie Book Award recipient. Please help me welcome Laura Crotty to the stage.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. How's everyone feeling? Yeah? How are you all enjoying the food here, the VegFest food? Good. Well, thank you for stopping by. That's quite an introduction. It's kind of, I guess you kind of know who I am. But I basically want to start with this cookbook. When I first launched this cookbook, I went on a bunch of PR tours. And it didn't matter whether I was doing a TV segment or on the radio or a podcast. The same 2 questions would always come up. And those 2 questions were, why a vegan dessert cookbook? And the second question was, how do you bake without eggs? And the first question, the way I answered it was, it's 2-part. First of all, how many moms are here? Is there a lot of moms? Over the years, I don't know about you, but it seems like almost everyone has a food sensitivity or a food allergy. I myself have, thank you. I myself have a sensitivity to dairy, and a lot of my friends who aren't vegan have sensitivities to wheat, soy, they're all over. So most of my friends that aren't vegan ask me, how do you make a dessert? How do you prepare food for people that aren't vegan? I want to include everybody, but I want it to taste good. So because of the demand and the fact these desserts are so expensive, if you buy them out, I've paid $8 for a slice of vegan cake. It's ridiculous. So I know how to bake them, and I wanted to make a little cookbook for everyone who loves these types of desserts and can serve them to their friends easily. Okay? So that's why I did that. And as far as how do you bake without eggs, that's what I'm going to show you guys how to do today. And these recipes are really easy. They're super easy. You can do them with ingredients in your own kitchen, and I want to get started with that. But before we get into the recipes, I want to introduce you to 2 really special people that came all the way here just to help me do this for you. They're gonna hand out some yummy samples at the end, so if you can stay for the whole thing, that'd be great. And some recipe cards, okay? So Manita, Kay, Ursula, if you come to the stage, please. Anita is an avid cook. She loves to cook. She loves to cook so much that she can't eat out because food tastes so great, and she's such a great cook, she can't eat out. So Anita was nice enough to just hang out with me and serve you guys some yummy cookies today. Or Kay. Kay, thank you. Thank you for helping me welcome. Kay is the mother of one of my colleagues, my work colleague, a creative powerhouse. Her daughter's name is Laura. And Kay came all the way here just to be here and help me today. So if you could help me welcome her. Handing out some cookies this afternoon. And Ursula's just here. She doesn't have to be here. She just popped in to just be here. So thank you so much, Ursula, for coming. So my brand is called The Vintage Veg. And what I do is I take the nostalgic recipes that we all know and love, and I veganize them. And when you are veganizing a recipe, eggs have a lot to do with translating a recipe into a vegan. You have to know how to make these eggs. So one of the things I start with is, this is kind of my go-to egg. It's called aquafaba. And aquafaba is a kind of a fancy name for bean liquid. And it's super easy to use, but because I love to tell stories about recipes, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of aquafaba. Aquafaba started as recent as 2014. A man by the name of Joel Roussel, he's a French tenor of all things, he was experimenting with vegetal foams. And he was taking vegetal foams and mixing aquafaba with them. I think it was I don't know what kind of bean he used, but he was making vegetal foams. But his foams weren't stable without the addition of starches and gums, and his technique was really complicated. So it didn't translate for at-home cooks like you and me. It just was a really complex, very interesting. He kind of threw aquafaba out there into the universe, but people didn't really catch on. Around the same time, 2 French foodies came along, and they were experimenting with the chocolate ganache and a meringue, another eggless meringue, and this meringue was made out of chickpea aquafaba. So they made this video, and they're mixing the ganache with the meringue on a video, but they were adding sugar to the meringue, and they were also baking it, but they didn't tell anybody how to bake it. So that also didn't translate to at-home cooks. That wasn't really useful, but everyone was like, wow, that's really cool. How did they do that? So 1 year later, a man by the name of Guus Wolt came on the scene. Does anyone know who Guus Wolt is? Anyone heard of that name? He's actually from Indiana, of all places. He's from here. Guus is an American, or was an American software engineer. And he came on the scene. It all started because his mom asked him, she's like, hey, Guus, can you make an eggless meringue for an upcoming Jewish holiday that she was celebrating? And he's like, sure. And his wife had actually seen this video that the 2 French foodies were doing. So she showed him the video, and off he went. He kind of went into his cave and he started experimenting, because that's what he does. And Guus not only created the name, he coined the term aquafaba, which is a Latin derivation meaning water bean, but he came up with a straightforward, simple recipe for aquafaba that kind of blew it out of the water. He shared his recipe on a Facebook group called What Fat Vegans Eat. I'm not kidding, that's the name of the group, it's so funny. He shared it on this website, and it went viral. And to this day, it's really why aquafaba came on the scene. So 2015, that's not too long ago. And Guus is the reason it's here today. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to use aquafaba. All you need really is a can of beans, and you can use any. Watch my can opener not work. It might not work. Hold on a minute. You can use any canned beans that you have. You can also use, if you're making your beans like dried beans, you can also use your dried beans. I like to use canned beans for a couple of reasons, mostly because of convenience, and also because there's less waste. Hi, Jazz. Jazz is a phenomenal cook, by the way. She's here. She has a stand. I highly recommend you try her food. It's fantastic. Anyway, in my cookbook, I explain I use Great Northern beans or cannellini beans. I love Great Northern and cannellini beans, but I use them because the aquafaba is ready to go. When you use canned beans, you have to make sure that the aquafaba is the right consistency. So if it's too watery, all you have to do is simmer it down in a pot until it gets to the same thickness as that of an egg white, okay? So you can use any bean, but just make sure that it's thick like an egg white, or simmer it down. If you are simmering it down, make sure that it's room temperature before you add it to your recipe. Okay, so all you need to do is take a fine mesh strainer. Can you guys see this? Okay. And this is going to be interesting. You pour it into a container. Oh my gosh, I didn't spill it. Fantastic. Pour it into a container, just like that. And you guys can see it? It's really thick. It's like an egg white. And then you just measure it out for your recipe. You literally, that's it. That's your egg. And the thing about aquafaba that's really fun is that it's really versatile. So say your recipe calls for an egg yolk. That takes 1 tablespoon of aquafaba. or you just need egg whites, 2 tablespoons of aquafaba. Or if you need a whole egg, 3 tablespoons. So you can like break down the egg. This egg is really cool that way. It's super versatile. Aquafaba has a really short shelf life though. Oh, and don't worry about remembering all this. I have 2 QR codes up here. One is for a blog post I wrote just for you guys, just for this event. Thank you for coming. If you scan this, it'll go right to the blog post with everything I'm talking about today. All the eggs are there. So you'll have it in your pocket to use when you're baking, for whatever you're doing. All right? And the other QR code is for this cookbook. I'll kind of get into that more, but it's just it not only has these recipes, but it has so many tips and tricks about natural sweeteners, the types of flours I like to use, the types of vegan butters I like to use, sweeteners. Did I say that? I think I said sweeteners. But it's a great reference to use. Okay, so you have your aquafaba. You know it's perishable. You can use any bean. One thing that I want to mention about aquafaba is you're going to have some leftover beans. So lots of times I'll just want the bean juice. What am I going to do with the beans? So what I like to do, there's 2 recipes I love to do. I either like to make a bean salad or I like to make hummus. And those are all so easy and they're so tasty and everybody likes that. So I also included my favorite recipe for white bean salad because I love white bean, or white bean hummus because I love white beans, and it's spicy. If you don't like heat, just take out the pepper. You don't have to add pepper to it. So there's a white bean hummus recipe, and I also have a black bean salad recipe for you guys to take. The book is just desserts, but I have a recipe card for you to take home, okay? So you can have the recipes for your pocket. And that's just a starter. You can make soups with beans. I mean, you know the drill. You can do anything with beans. I just like something super quick. I don't want to be bothered. And it's cold, and you can keep it in the fridge, and they can last for like a week. You have that great snack, and it's super nutritious and healthy for you, and who doesn't need health? Okay, so that's aquafaba. How cool is that? That's 1 egg. That's easy. No excuse not to make that. Everybody can do that. All right, so the next egg that we're going to do is a flax egg. So does anyone use ground flax seeds? So some of you are familiar with flax seeds and how healthy they are. They are a nutrition powerhouse. And what's really great about flax seeds, ground flax seeds, is unlike aquafaba, they have a shelf life of 6 months in the refrigerator. So as long as, by the way, leftover aquafaba, if you do have leftover, make sure both of these are in an airtight container so they stay fresh as long as possible. Okay, that's important. But these are fantastic. So ground flax seeds, other than having fiber, long shelf life, and nutrition, super easy egg to make. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So all you need for this egg is 1 tablespoon of ground flax seeds. It's puffy. Okay, 2 tablespoons of that, and 3 tablespoons of water. 2. And that's your flax egg. That's so easy. And you mix it up. Now, I like to mix up this egg first when I'm making the recipe. So make this egg, or these eggs, depending on how many eggs you need. Make this egg first when you're cooking or baking, because it takes about 5 minutes to set up. So you want to make sure you have this like kind of done and on the side. Put it off to the side. Let it set up, and this is going to look kind of like, has anyone ever used chia seeds or anything? They get kind of thick, and this will get kind of thick like an egg white. So keep it off to the side, let it thicken, then add it to your recipe when your recipe's ready, all right? So this has to set up, and another little note that you guys want to pay attention to is the flax egg is going to have a little bit of a nutty aftertaste, but it's really mild. It's not strong, but you might want to keep that in mind when you're doing a recipe, because you want your recipe to go with that. I've used flax seeds of flax egg with everything. I think it is super versatile, and I love nuts. But if you have people that don't like the flavor of nuts or aren't that happy with nuts, then don't use a flax egg. Just don't. But anyway, it's really easy and really good. And this one will kind of thicken up as we go. That's your flax egg. Okay, so easy again. So no one is gonna have an excuse not to use these eggs. They're that easy. All right, the next egg I wanna show you is a baking powder egg. A baking powder egg is one of my favorite eggs because you might not have beans, you might not have flax seeds, but most people have a can of baking powder in their cabinet, right? The only thing with baking powder is that the shelf life of baking powder is so long. It's like 2 years at least. So make sure your baking powder is fresh before you do this, or it's not gonna work, or your recipes won't work. So don't do what I've done many times. Make sure your baking powder is fresh. So that's really all you need to know about this egg. So my baking powder is fresh. I checked it before I came. All right, all you need are 2 teaspoons of baking powder mixed with 1 teaspoon of no-taste oil. And more on that in a second. I'm going to talk about no-taste oil because there's a few things that I didn't know that are very helpful about choosing your oils wisely. And then 2 tablespoons of water. And that's that for the baking powder egg. Now, like the flax egg, and it kind of bubbles up, it's kind of cool. Kind of does a little bit of like that baking soda volcano thing you used to do when you were in like 3rd grade. Kind of does that a little bit. Anyway, you mix that up and you set that aside just like the flax egg. This one only needs about 2 minutes though. You don't need to let this set up too long, but do let it set up before you add it to your recipe, okay? And that's your baking powder egg. Now the thing about the baking powder egg, you guys can get a look at these, is that, let me put this in here. The thing about the baking powder egg, or the oil, I should say, is most of us have a vegetable blend or a canola oil in our cabinet. That's what I've had for years. Over time, I've learned, you know, if you go to a safflower oil or a sunflower oil, an avocado oil, you can buy a much higher quality oil. They're not that much more expensive. In fact, well, maybe like $1 more. I don't know, it depends where you live. But you're doing so much better for your body, for your health, if you use like a safflower, sunflower, avocado, even a rice bran oil. They're all better choices for these eggs for your cooking than the blends. They process the canola and the vegetable oils at such high temperatures, they just the processing just doesn't work well in our bodies. They're not natural. So if you can go with a natural oil, if it doesn't have a fragrance, it's gonna work. But those are kind of the ones I like to use, the ones I mentioned. I really love safflower and sunflower because they're the most affordable. When you get into like a rice bran and an avocado, you can pay $10, $11 for those. Those are really pricey. So just whatever you wanna do, if you wanna splurge on a fancier oil, great, but they're all pretty healthy, those, better choices. Okay, we're on to our last egg, which is the big showstopper. Okay, you ready? A banana. It's just a banana, nothing fancy. All you need for this egg is a banana. It has to be ripe. You can use an overripe banana if you want. But this is kind of a small banana. You only need 1/4 cup of this mashed for your recipe, and that'll do it for your egg. And like the flax egg, this egg has a hint of banana flavor. So if you're using 3 banana eggs, if you're going crazy and doing a 3-egg recipe, it's gonna be a strong banana flavor. So if you don't like bananas, this probably isn't the egg for you, okay? But you have 3 other choices, so there's no excuses again. You gotta use one, gotta use one of these eggs, all right? So I love banana eggs. I really love these in rustic recipes. So we're coming into fall and the colder weather, so a bran muffin, a pumpkin muffin, pumpkin cookies, harvest cookies, a coffee cake, any kind of cake bread, a pumpkin bread. Did I say pumpkin? I probably did, sorry. But you know what I mean, you know where I'm going, like all these really, the kind of recipes where you eat one and you're like, that was so good, I'm so satisfied. That's a great egg for those types of recipes. Now, we're gonna open up for some questions. We're gonna have some questions. If anyone wants to talk about food, baking, and questions about plant-based eggs, I do wanna talk about that, and I wanna give you guys some samples. But I wanna give you guys some tips before you go about cooking with plant-based eggs. When you are making vegan recipes, when you want to have a lighter dessert, a lighter, delicious thing to eat. I prefer to vegan desserts because they taste just as good in my opinion, and they make you feel better. So when you're baking this way, start with vegan versions of your favorite recipes. So say you want to make a Toll House cookie. Look for a recipe that's a vegan Toll House cookie. Start with that. And the reason I say that is because plant-based ingredients work differently than, say, a chicken egg. The magic in the oven isn't the same. And if you just go right for a Toll House recipe and you try to throw in a banana egg or a baking powder egg, chances are it's not going to work. You have to get used to, there's a little bit of experimentation involved if you're jumping into a standard recipe. And I want you guys to have the most success as possible when you start, so you get excited and you don't waste your money on a failed recipe. So start with vegan versions of your favorite recipes. That's my first tip. The second tip that I want to share with you is when you're ready, when you've experimented with these eggs and you're ready to go on to new recipes and try these recipes, go for recipes with 2 eggs or less. Don't jump into a 5-egg recipe. Don't make like a carrot cake with 5 eggs or don't do that. Start with a recipe with 2 eggs or less and use one of these eggs that you're kind of familiar with, I hope, at that point. And you'll most likely have success and you won't be like, oh, I just wasted that whole recipe and God knows how much time you put into making it. It's really frustrating. So those are kind of the tips I have for you. And, don't forget up here, I've got some QR codes. This one, I believe, one of them is for the recipes I just shared with you, and the other one is for the cookbook. Now, this cookie that we're going to start handing out, you guys want to come up and start? Where'd Kay go? Okay. Kay's going to hand out some cookies now, so if you guys can just stay put, we're going to come to you. Or Kay, would you prefer they come up? You stand and they come up, or how would you like to do it? Why don't you guys kind of start coming up for your cookie, if that's all right? Or you can stay seated if you have some questions. There's plenty of cookies. Don't worry about it. I think we're getting a mic for you. Are you selling cookbooks? Yes, you can. I have just a few, but you can buy one if you want, or you can just scan the code and get it on Amazon. Whatever you're comfortable with. Yeah.
And which egg makes meringue?
Aquafaba. That's a really good question, yes. And it's surprisingly easy to make. Have you tried it? Have you tried making meringue? It is it's fascinating. I did not do a meringue in my cookbook. I did not. I made this before COVID,
Okay.
like 2017. But yeah, if you have a question, grab the mic and just.
And are there any good egg substitutes for, like, you want to make a pumpkin pie or custard, like a custardy, like pumpkin pie or something?
Are there egg substitutes for custard?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, where I start. So custard, I've made a hard sauce that's and a chocolate pudding. I have not used eggs in those. So if I were to attempt a custard, you know what I'd do? I'd do exactly what I recommended with you guys. I would go and do my research, and I would, thank you. Yeah, can you get it, hun? Yeah, just take your time. I would look for a plant-based recipe for custard and follow that, and if it tastes good, I'd go with that. Start there. It's like the easiest way, Googling, right? Hey, Kelly. Oh, hi.
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
First is, what are your thoughts on those, like when you need to grease your pan, the spray cans, because it seems like there's unhealthy ingredients in there.
Yeah.
And the other question is, aquafaba, does that give you gas?
Oh, I really like you. Does aquafaba give you gas? I think if you're sensitive to beans to begin with, it might cause a little bit of stomach upset. In my experience, I'm a little sensitive to beans. I've had no issues with it, and I think the reason that is because when you're baking, the chemistry of the aquafaba changes, just like an egg would. And it's more of a protein structure, so it breaks it down and then the recipe kind of comes together, breaks it down, builds it back up in a different form. So I don't think you're going to experience any issues, stomach upset, with aquafaba. What was your other question? Oh, the sprays. Are they unhealthy? Is that the question? Just like the oils, you remember how I was saying some oils are healthier than others? I've noticed some of the sprays come in organic Like I buy an organic avocado oil from Simple Truth brand. Very little processing. It's a really wonderful oil, and I do use it. I love them. They're so convenient. And you save a lot of calories and fat as well by using them. Hi.
Hi, thanks for being here today. I did have a question. If you get interrupted in the middle of your cooking, how long can you let your, say, your aquafaba egg or your flaxseed egg sit and it is still effective in your recipe?
Sure. The aquafaba egg, because of its perishability, so if your kitchen's really hot like mine is, I have a small, hot kitchen. So I put it in the fridge. If I'm gonna be like, if it's a complicated recipe, it's gonna be sitting for longer than, say, 5-7 minutes, stick it in the fridge, you know, and then take it out so it can come down a little bit before you use it. It's kind of annoying, but you don't wanna risk it getting funny. But for the most part, did you ask about all the eggs or just the aquafaba? And the flax. The flax egg, I think, is super sturdy. So, but again, I think for all of these, you don't want your kitchen to be too extreme. So if it is, just keep it in the fridge before you use it. It's probably best. Hi.
Hi. Do you have something that would work to create an angel food cake?
Something that would work, that's a tough one. Angel food is a tough one. I have, you know, I don't really make it a lot because I like a cakey, rich, heavy cake, so I don't make angel food a lot. But I'm guessing, are you talking about eggs, an egg replacer for angel food? I'm guessing it's gonna probably be a baking powder egg or an aquafaba egg for that. That's what I would experiment with. I'd actually possibly make a meringue with the aquafaba, like whip it up into like a meringue, not bake it, but whip it into a solid and then incorporate that into the angel food and try that. But if I had a recipe for you, I'd give it to you, but I don't. Keep in touch, please everybody, keep in touch on social media. My handle is a Vintage Veg. Might not be able to like answer a lot of questions. Maybe you'll have a question after this, but just I'd love to hear from you and hear what you guys are doing or what you're learning and your recipes, like the stories with your recipes, like your favorite, send them to me. Let me know if you want to improve them or share them. Yes.
Are they diabetically available?
Are they diabetically available?
Are they sugar-free? Are they nut-free? And what was the other question? What type of grain? What type of grain?
Okay, so these are oatmeal crunch cookies. They're not diabetic. They do have sugar in them. They have a coconut sugar in them, but it's a less processed sugar, so it's going to break down kind of slowly in your body. Not like a, you know, like a white cane sugar, a super processed sugar. They have the aquafaba egg. That's an example of the aquafaba egg you'd never know. So you can kind of see how nice an aquafaba egg is when you taste the cookie. They're wonderful. They're not commercial. This is just the book is available. The recipe is in my book. And there's a lot of great cookies in the book as well. They do not have nuts. They are just oats, and the crunch is a potato chip. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The crunch is potato chips. Okay. Yeah. So it's the grain. The oat is the only grain. Spelt flour, which is a gluten-friendly flour. Yeah. Hi.
Have you ever used oat flour?
I love oat flour. It's one of my favorite flours. Yeah, and it's all over this. So. Hi.
If you use the baking powder egg substitute, I know because in general in baking powder makes your cookies and things turn out differently than like baking soda or things. If you use that egg substitute, is that going to change it like if you were baking, like you were adding it as a dry ingredient?
If you have baking powder in the recipe, does it affect the baking powder? Is that what you mean? No, it's completely separate from the recipe. So the magic happens, don't ask me how, but I've tested enough recipes. It's a wonderful thing. Don't even worry about that. That's a good question. Yeah. Yes. That's that crunch. It's potato chip. Isn't that good, the salt and the sweet? I really like that. Yeah. Thank you.
Laura, I had a question for you. Can you recommend how to prepare mung bean for aquafaba?
How to prepare?
Mung bean
aquafaba. Well, I think I would guess you would just make the mung beans the same way you would any other beans. So if you buy them dry, cook them, reserve the liquid. I guarantee it's probably going to be watery, so you're going to have to reduce it.
I see.
And depending on the amount of aquafaba you have or bean liquid left over, that's going to depend on the amount of cooking time to reduce it.
I see.
Probably quite a bit.
Thank you.
I use it a lot.
Uh,
I don't use
Anyone needs help with scanning, because I just learned how to scan a couple weeks
Oh, yes, yes. If anyone needs help scanning the QR code, let me know and I'll help you with that. Is it not working? It's okay.